until we have a quorum. Lila, is it just the three of us that are on? Okay. There's no Laura Sienna. She's our recording secretary. Okay. She may be at the other meeting too. So we'll just be patient.
Just checking. Can you see me, Susan? I think so.
I can hear you very well. As
Okay.
it's all good. Sound check worked, and I can.
Yeah. And I could hear the echo in there. Remember we were talking about that?
Yeah, I don't know whether we're going to try to improve that. Is there any way you can improve the
Yeah.
echo?
I'm going to put myself back on mute.
Or maybe if I just sit back, is that better, Mary?
That's a little better, but I think you're not going to be as, I think, Mike, can you hear what she's saying if she sits back like that?
Yeah, when she moved back a little bit, it definitely was
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
Better here?
Yeah, that sounds good. Where are you? At the senior center?
I'm at the senior center, yeah.
Oh.
Changing where the cameras are at some point, but not just yet. So that's why we're doing things, because we're going to be building them. And okay, who is it? Okay, so we'll have 3 selectmen. We just need 1 more selectman, and we will have a quorum. They're on too? Okay. I think our quorum has arrived. And I'm not certain that we have a recording secretary, Laura Sienna. If you're on, would you please indicate so in the chat?
I think she was still on the other call, but we ended it. So I would think if she's coming, she'll be coming behind that.
Thank you, Ralph. Good job, Lila and Grace.
Hi, Susan.
Hi, Michael. Waiting for everyone to rejoin. They were at the Board of Selectmen meeting, and our recording secretary.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, the sound.
I can hear you. That was
Hello?
an interesting meeting. Hey, Susan.
I'm looking for our recording secretary. Laura, are you on the Zoom meeting? Please indicate by sending us a chat, if you could. No, she's not on.
Hey,
So we're recording. We'll follow the meeting regularly scheduled at 7:30, but we'll call it to order at 7:42 PM. This is November 4th. If you'd all please stand for the flag of the United States of
It's
America.
a-
Flag of the
And
United
to the
States
republic
Republic,
for which it
for
stands,
which it stands,
one nation, under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty
liberty
and
and justice for all.
Thank you. Item to accept the agenda as posted.
So moved.
Second,
Your
Was
name
Jim- That was Jim. I made the motion.
and who made the second?
Mike Pelton.
Thank you, Mike. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
2020. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from October 21, 2020. It's Jim.
I'll second it.
Seconded by
Rick?
Shar. Thank you, Rick. Any changes, errors, omissions? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Under communications and correspondence, I wanted to bring your attention to an activity that our Portland Historical Society is being involved with. They are going to be relocating a historic building along Main Street from the Gildersleeve section of town to their building, which is near William Street. I bring it to your attention because given the cost of this move and placement and work that needs to be done, the building permit fee would be approximately $1,500. And I spoke with the Historical Society and indicated that I would speak with the board. And we agreed that $500 would be an appropriate fee for them to pay rather than the $1,500. Before I did that, I wanted to bring it to your attention because I don't like waiving fees unless it's a town-owned activity. We don't pay fees for our own activities, but this is a private nonprofit, and certainly the work that they're doing in our community. So I wanted to bring it up with you, thoughts, and see where you want to go from there.
Susan, this building is large, small. It's going to fit on the property in back of the Historical Society?
That's where I indicated. Yes.
I mean, if this is a historical building, I'm all in favor of the $500 for the permit.
Yeah, I feel the same way, given the nature of what they do in the community, and then the fact that this is really something that's going to preserve part of our history. I think that's something I'm in favor of.
Okay.
I'm assuming, Susan, you'll be hiring the Portland Police to help escort this building down the road?
If they're going by road, Mike, I'm not sure how, I don't know if they're able to go through backyards or not. I haven't gotten to that level of detail. It's possible that the cost is a large part the move, because as you know, in terms of electrical wiring and getting other permits besides building can be very extensive and expensive. So they're still in the stages of getting everything organized, but Mr. McDougall, who is working with the town, had asked that the $500 be a reasonable fee so that they can use the rest of those dollars to put toward the work that they're doing.
Susan, where is the building being moved from?
In the Gildersleeve section, I think it's the Larson family house, somewhere in that vicinity. I have not visited the property yet. I'm sure if you wanted to, we can make those arrangements. If you wanted to see what they're doing, they certainly do that. I have some written.
I'm Well, I was just wondering like how big it is and how far they're moving it. So, I mean, you've shed some light on that. So it's maybe like a half mile or something.
Rick,
Um,
thing on-
but if it's a big structure,
It's the old Gildersleeve grocery store.
I'm sorry, you broke up a little bit.
Grocery store, Gildersleeve store. There was evidence
Oh,
store. I don't remember the dimensions. It is not a large building, but it is a size building.
yeah. Well, I'm not opposed to giving them a break. They're a good group of people and it's an important part of our town. I'm just sort of wondering, like, there could be quite a bit of other expense involved and like, Mike Hernandez mentioned, if it comes up the road, you're probably gonna need the police and shut down traffic for a while and,
Be happy to have them come and speak to us during correspondence at a future meeting so that we can get a better understanding. I think it's great.
it'd be nice to know a little more about it, I think, but conceptually, I'm not opposed.
But I would like that in the form of a motion that the building permit fee for the town, now this is the town's fee, would be limited to no more than $500.
Yeah, I'll make that motion if you'd like, Susan. Just, I'm so moved.
For a second,
I'll second that.
Lou?
Yep.
Discussion?
I would say that I would also agree. I support the effort. It sounds like a good plan. So as we continue to try to keep our older buildings, investor, you can be able to restore them. So, and by the way, Susan, Laura is indeed on. So at this point, so
All right, thank you.
your heads up.
Susan, do we know how soon they're going to be looking to do this?
They've started some of the work. I know that the application for the permit, they're working with our building official, Lincoln White. So I'll speak with Mr. McDougall and ask him to come and discuss it with us. I'm sure he'll be happy to do that. All in favor of the motion of limiting the building fee for the Portland building fee to no more than $500 for the Portland Historical Society to move the Gildersleeve store, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
I
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. Motion carries. The next item is public comment. Lyra, do we have anybody wanting to speak? No public comment at this point in the agenda. So we're going to move on to the reentry committee, discussion of services and programs during COVID-19. And I've re-invited Mary Pont in terms of our senior center to visit again. Previous to this meeting, we did share the opening plan for senior centers within the Chatham Health District, which was distributed to Selectman. But I'll turn it over to you, Mary, at this point.
Before Mary speaks, Susan, could you get a different microphone?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, good point,
I'm
Lou.
not sure if that'll help or not, but the one you have is not working very well.
I was just going to text her.
Oh,
Good job.
She's leaving the building now, Lou. Look at her.
She's gone.
The camera's following her.
Hey, I heard there was an election yesterday.
Okay, we'll do, how's this microphone?
Sounds good.
Also good.
sounds better.
Is this one any better?
Yeah, much.
Yes.
Okay. Mary, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, I think last time that I was with you on your meeting, we had discussed the opening plan, and I know that now Susan has forwarded that plan to you, so you do have that in front of you. I think the best thing is, after you've reviewed it, are there any questions that you have for me about it? It was developed with, as you see on the front page, cover of the page, Colchester, East Haddam, East Hampton, Hebron, Marlborough, and Portland. We all worked together for a couple of months on this with Chatham Health District to come up with a, I'm going to call it a universal plan for our district. And knowing that each center is going to have certain things that are going to be a little bit different for each center, but we all felt very strongly about following the same guidelines for opening. And at this moment, we're probably not talking about an opening date. It seems to get kicked a little further down the road, but I'd just like to entertain if you have any questions about this.
So Mary, Ralph, I have a question. Obviously, we've seen this acceleration in concern, and you've seen it backpedaling a little by the
Yep.
state. Have you had a discussion with this group since the governor came out with some revisions?
Yes, actually, we were emailing back and forth yesterday because one of the things we have East Hampton, Marlborough, and Hebron, I believe have all risen to the orange level. And Colchester is on the verge. They were all had started thinking about dates in November, and those have been put aside right now. You know, talking about how each individual center was going to open with certain activities, because every center has different kind of activities. So we have been talking about it, and we still firmly believe in this. And if you look on page 3, because I think the first page is just the overview explaining what is COVID. Just in case nobody knows what it is, you know, we wanted to make sure that people did understand that. But on the page 3, the plan for reopening, boldly, it very boldly states that please note that the state's recommendation for those who are over the age of 65 and or have chronic medical conditions which put them in a high risk remains stay home, stay safe. So that is still one of those statements that's being firmly said. And in that following paragraph, I'll say in the middle of it, it says your participation in programs and services is voluntary and at your own risk. Because we need people to understand that, you know, it's at their risk coming out. You know, not that we're not going to welcome them, but we want them to understand that there could be some risk by them coming into a building. We've also talked, and I think it's the next line. Let me just look here quickly, that there's going to be, and it was on the end of your sheets. I think what was included, you also had the colored papers that are going to be put up to say you wear a mask and all that. But at the end of that was also the sheet that has the screening questions that each one is going to have to go through the self-screening checklist. Oops, hold on a minute here.
Yeah, it's on page 3, correct?
Yep. Well, the screening is on the end after all of it's in the addendum, Rick,
Okay.
in the end. It says self-screening checklist. It's like the
Oh,
last,
yes, yeah,
last
okay.
page. So each
Right.
person that's coming into the center is going to have to go through standing there for that minute and going through that checklist. Also, as they're coming in, it's not going to be, we'll call it an open door policy. It's going to be, if there's an activity, then they need to call and say, I am coming in today for the knitting group. I'm coming in today for whatever the activity is. So they have officially, I'll say, registered for that day coming in. So it isn't just all of a sudden 25 people decide to come to the center because we're open. So that's going to have to be one of those very clear statements from us that you need to let us know that you're coming in for the day, because we have to be careful of how many we have in the building. We have to do the spacing in the room, whatever that activity is. So we're going to be very, very, very careful of that.
Mary, have any of the centers opened
Now,
to program?
now, there are a few that have, and they're spread out throughout the state,
No,
but
I'm just
more
speaking on Chatham Health District at this point.
in Chatham Health District? No, none in Chatham Health have opened yet.
Okay.
They have not fully opened. They have different activities. Like, for instance, we are giving medical rides. A lot are doing medical rides. They are opening, so they have, we'll call it the Meals on Wheels, or the meals, grab and go meals. We do not do that yet. So those kind of things, they are doing those kind of things, but that's it. There is no actual activity that comes in that they come in, they spend an hour or two in the building. That has not happened yet for any of the centers.
Okay. Question. Thank you. Other questions? Rick?
Yeah, Susan, I don't know if you have the answer, or Mary, how's our COVID cases in Portland? Now, I know Mary mentioned East Hampton, Marlboro, Hebron were kind of getting in the orange zone or something. How is Portland doing in relation to some of the other towns in the district as far as COVID cases or hospitalizations?
Well, I heard Russell Melmed, he was on the Middlesex County Chamber Division meeting with East Hampton and Portland this morning, and he was quoting the numbers that we had received last Thursday, which is 7.7 cases per 100,000, which moves us from not being on the color spectrum to being yellow. So Portland is, as of last Thursday, yellow. I expect, Rick, we should get a report perhaps tomorrow. I know that, as Mary said, East Hampton, I believe, was 11 or somewhere in that range. So them orange. If a community is above 15 per 100,000, they would be red. At last week's report, Cromwell was red. I don't know about Middletown. I'm not certain of Middletown. I do know that Marlboro, as Mary said a few minutes ago, and Colchester are orange, which means they're between 10 and 15 per 100,000. East Haddam and Hebron were not on the spectrum, so they were below 5 per 1,000. That's the Chatham Health.
Okay.
So things have escalated.
Right. That's what I was wondering.
And I think,
I've heard they were escalating. I didn't know specifically how they were in our neighborhood, so to speak.
I think that was something that, as we were meeting with Russell, he basically said that our last meeting altogether was about, I'm going to say about 3 weeks ago when we finalized this. And he said at that point that due to what they were seeing in the state, that he felt we were going to be seeing it in our district fairly soon. And obviously that has happened. And I think, Susan, Middletown is red as well.
Okay.
But Portland's somewhere over 100 that have been affected to
If
date.
people are interested in the public health, Connecticut ct.gov public health would give you the map and additional information. I don't have it for tonight's meeting. The regional reopening plan that was been shared with us for the Chatham Health District, I think has good information. I would, if the board is interested in approving these protocols, I would certainly withhold and allow the selectmen to indicate when the exact date would be to extend the opening for programming inside the building. And that would be based on scientific information that we get from the Chatham Health District and the data for our town. So what do the other selectmen think about it?
Well, Susan, I think that to err on the side of caution and safety is the best thing to do.
But what do you think of a plan that's in front of you that you received earlier? Is there changes
that-
you'd like to see?
Yeah, encompasses everything. I think it's aligned with the health district. Mary feels comfortable with it. I do too.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I'm very comfortable with the protocols. I think it's probably a good idea that we look and take more time to see how things progress with COVID and how we trend, but so holding off and actually opening up until we know more, I think that's a good idea as well.
Mike, Pelton?
Yeah, I agree as well. It makes a lot of sense given all the unknowns going on right now.
Yeah.
So I think it's the right thing to do.
Okay. How about Mike Hernandez? Any thoughts?
No, I'm on the same page as everybody else. I think we should hold off and wait and see what happens.
You want to approve, because I think it's important to acknowledge your receipt of this plan. You want to actually approve it or just endorse the Chatham Health District's regional reopening plan. That would be something I think would be good for the record. And we'll certainly come back to you to indicate how the COVID-19 cases are going and what the recommendations are for the Chatham Health District and all the towns in regard to the exact date for reopening the buildings for programming interior. I think I want to make sure that we continue with the programming that we're doing, which is the rides on the van. That there are also appointments taken individual for people who need foot care. And Mary, you were doing in-person appointments for the rental assistance, the rental rebate program.
That's pretty well wrapped up. I do have, that was finished as of October 1st. I did, I'm going to say about 75 appointments, and that was scheduling them far enough apart that they left the area and everything was sanitized, wiped down in between the people. I do have a couple more of those appointments that are going to happen, but pretty much everybody, if they need anything, they call ahead and don't really come into the building. They sort of get met at the door right now. So we have not been able to worry really about exclusively sanitizing everything that everybody touches. Because when I was doing the rent rebate, I'm going to say 95% were wearing their masks. Some I had to remind them to put them on. I know that they were not using the hand sanitizer, but I was taking every ultimate precaution that I could with the area that they were in and what I was touching with them, and making sure that the next person was going to be as safe as I was when they left. So, I think we're being very, very careful of that.
Just a little. Can you hear me?
You were breaking up again. I'm sorry, what did you say?
I received information from Don Goen, our emergency
Okay.
management director. These numbers were as of the 12th of October. Just to remind you that at that point, there were 89 positive cases total,
Mhm.
in the town of Portland. And there had been 14 deaths since March of 2020. And those numbers have gone up. I don't think I see anything earlier than that, anything later than that date, but I will get some more information and we'll share it at the next meeting.
I believe we're 102. It's either 102 or 104 for Portland
Thank you.
as of the end of last week or the weekend
Okay.
when they reported.
So this is Ralph. So what I would say is that I think the plan, which I expected, the plan is as thorough as it possibly could be for the situation. So I would, since I made the motion last time, I would make the motion for that that the Board of Selectmen would endorse the plan for reopening of the senior center and hold off the specific date to a time to be decided in the future. How does that sound?
Is there a second to that motion
I'll second that motion.
by Jim Tripp? There is a little background noise. I don't know if some of our guests have their mute button. If you could use mute, please, that would help. The selectmen don't need to, but our guests should. Okay, further discussion?
I have another question. But speaking of background noise, that's my cuckoo clock going off. On page 7, capacity guidelines. So one thing that would concern me, and hopefully it's being accounted for, it says 50% capacity or 25 people, whichever is fewer. But like, how do you determine the capacity? Say you're in a small room and you put 25 people in and they're not 6 feet apart. So do you have a sort of a plan for, if you're holding an event in one of the rooms, how many people you could get in that room and still be socially distanced?
One of the things that in our plan is that the type of activities that are going to be happening in there, people usually are sitting at a table. So we have the card tables, which is a perfect way to set them throughout the room. And it'll be the room that Susan's in, that large room. So are we going to get 25 people in there? A lot of the activities don't have 25 people. So I'm not too concerned about that right now, Rick, but we're going to place the tables. And what we're going to have to continually watch is that people like to move things. I know that's hard to believe, but people like to move things. So it's going to have to be, the furniture police are going to have to be out there all the time to make sure that they don't move the tables together. They can't sit together. One of the things as we were all working together on this is that we started talking about the 6-foot distance and then talking about 8-foot tables, that if we had an 8-foot table, one person could be on each end. Then you have it 8 feet apart. So as we are placing tables, whether it's an 8-foot or the card tables, we are going to place those strategically around. So they're definitely going to be apart, and just, they're going to have to be made aware they can't move those tables.
Rick, this room by the fire marshal is 91 people.
Oh,
Tables
okay.
and chairs, with
Yeah.
chairs only. This room, this is the Mary Lou Rice room, accommodates 196 people, and that's in non-COVID days. So 50% of those numbers would exceed 25. So you could never go above the 25. And based on current conditions, there may even be some changes to that based on what the governor's recommendations are. I haven't scoured those, but that's certainly something that we would do before we recommend that programming commence. I know that some of the programs are minimal numbers of people, and as Mary indicated, they do distance themselves, but they can still be in this large room, which has a very high ceiling as well. And there would need to be some suggested ventilation that I think would need to be had in this room. I mean, there's just so many considerations for us to have programming in person. That's why we're not having meetings in person, and why I have a mask on. I have someone assisting me with two people actually assisting us with the cameras and with the Zoom meetings. And we all have our face coverings on. It's the best way to prevent getting the disease. So we can't stop. I mean, we still have to go to the store. We still have to conduct business. We need to make appointments. But in terms of socializing or in terms of making classes or group settings, I think we need to be cautious, and we need to make sure that we're following the best recommendations. And as of now, the Chatham Health District is not recommending that senior centers open. That is open to, I want to clarify that, open to programs where there are group meetings inside a building. There are exercise classes that are occurring outside, and there are other gatherings that have been outside. The weather is not always cooperative, but there's still activities that can be had with the outdoors. There's also been some drive-by activities. You know, we had the Halloween program last week. Mary had an emergency services as well as drug prevention information given out 2 weeks prior to that. There are ways to communicate with one another that may not entail groups in a room for a prolonged period of time. I'll also point out that the library is open, but they are not having group meetings, closed room for a duration of time. They're trying to keep things minimal exposure to individuals with each other, keeping that distance, as well as keeping your time limits so that you're not spending a tremendous amount of time in a public space indoors. So with that, is there any
Okay.
other comments on this plan? Rick,
No, I'm fine.
all in favor of the plan as written by Chatham Health District with the understanding that
This was written,
could
can
I,
I just correct that, Susan? It's not written by Chatham Health District. It is written by the directors, administrators of the senior centers with Chatham Health District.
so who actually wrote it?
All of the senior center directors
Yeah, but
with Chatham
There
Health
would have
District.
been one person who wrote this. Who wrote it?
I'll say that it was, the person who typed it was Colchester, Patty Watts. Well, but all of us
Then
added to it. All of us put parts into it. We all worked together on it.
just clarify for me,
Okay.
what is Chatham Health District's role? Have they approved this?
Yes, they have. They oversaw all of this while we were working on it. They worked with us on it, made suggestions for it. So this is under the guidance of Chatham Health District. How about that? Under the guidance of Chatham Health District.
Any other comments on that?
Sorry about that. I could have let that go, but
In favor?
Aye.
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 Any abstentions? Any noes? Okay, the motion carries. Anything else in terms of the senior center, Mary?
no, I think we're just going to keep an eye on what's happening within the district, and all of us are keeping connected to see what is happening in each of our towns, and knowing that our main goal is to keep all of our seniors safe.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item is racial equity, diversity, inclusion. I don't know if April Graves is on the call. Yes.
She
April, do
is.
you want to make some comments on the task force tonight?
So the task force has met and will be meeting again next Tuesday. And we are trying to come up with a couple different directives of what we think the town could do as far as a townwide activity. We're looking at a family activity, a child-directed activity, and then maybe an adults-only activity.
Thank you. I will try to attend that meeting, and it is an open meeting for all to attend. What time does it start, April?
It's 7 o'clock, Tuesday, the 10th.
Thank you. It is Zoom B as in back door, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Any questions? Then we'll move on to, I think, an easy one. Number 9, setting the meeting dates for calendar year 2021. We're required to do this under freedom of information.
Mhm.
Dates were shared with you. I don't know if you had a chance to look at them.
Nothing jumped out. They looked like they were good.
Yep, they look fine.
I didn't look at a calendar to see if August 4th is really a Wednesday, but all trustees are on Wednesday.
I don't know.
What?
I didn't check them all. I know Michelle did, and she's usually pretty good about trying to get the organized for us, with some exceptions because of holy days and holidays.
Yeah, they're all on Wednesdays, and I appreciate that September 22nd was moved from the third Wednesday to the 22nd, because that's we observed that holiday at that time. So I'd like to make a motion to accept the meeting dates for the calendar year 2021 for the Board of Selectmen.
Thank you, Lou. Is there a second?
Second, Rick,
Is that Rick Shar?
yes.
Thank you, Rick. Any changes suggested? All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. The next item that we have here is the water grant. I just wanted to bring our attention. I thought I might have more information for you tonight for the $250,000 grant that we will be getting from the state of Connecticut to find a new water source in our town. I did have an email from the town manager in East Hampton reaching out to discuss their plans. So I will be in touch with Mr. Cox next week to speak with him and give you an update as time goes on. And hopefully I'll receive some of the paperwork that will be necessary for signature, and I'll bring it back to you for your approval. And that would be the grant. The next item is the monthly budget report, and Tom Robinson is here. I did send to you today, I received the monthly budget report. Tom indicated to me there's not a tremendous amount of change from last month. I know you haven't had a chance to scour it by any means, but I do want to make sure that monthly you receive a report. And if anything jumps out, you can certainly say tonight. If not, we can always talk about it at our next meeting. And in the meantime, contact our office if you have additional concerns. But I will ask Tom Robinson, our Director of Finance, if he has any further comments for us.
Sure, I can go over a few things. On the revenues, we did receive our first component of our educational cost sharing monies that generally comes in at the end of October, and it came in at $1.123 million. So that's a positive. But we did receive the pilot state-owned property at the amount that they told us was going to be the budgeted amount for $13,439. We have received $170,000 from Brownstone Exploration so far. So that's a positive. We have received 2 payments from Oak Hill so far in our property rental. The town clerk's revenue has been strong. A lot of recording activity. They also, for miscellaneous revenue, they did receive about $5,000 grant to help with the elections. That was from our foundation. The gun permit activity has met our budget, which is good. There's been a lot of gun permit activity. Private duty will be strong with the bridge at work, and Asplund has done quite a bit of work. And interest to the bad investment income, interest rates are very low. So that's one of the revenue items we'll continue to watch. On the expense side, as we stated, 23, the page 5 of the expense report, the police private duty number right now is at $110,000 expended. So we'll have to continually watch that as this project continues. But revenue will be higher as well. I did speak with the police secretary, and the amounts have been billed and are waiting on a payment. So that's good. The highway division due to the storm, they had over expenditures in their overtime line item due to the large storms that we've had outside of snowstorms. So if there is that's something we're waiting to see if we hear anything from FEMA, whether that storm will be able to be reimbursed. So there'd be overtime that would be able to be reimbursed, as well as brush grindings within the resource recovery. We had to redo that again that we had just done, a little bit under $10,000 for that program. So I think those were the items that I just wanted to bring to your attention. And then, like I said, if you guys see anything in the report, if you have any questions on, just let us know. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? I did want to let you know that today, Ty and Bond and a company a company that is going to take down the above ground storage tanks at Brownstone Avenue with us on site. And they will likely, pending all of the paperwork in terms of liability and insurance, will be taking down those tanks, as well as the filling station that's on site, and all other metal piping of that sort, before Thanksgiving, or at least before December 1. It's maybe a safer date for me to say. And the name of the company is Connecticut Scrap and DW Transport, and they are out of North Franklin, Connecticut. They will remove all of these materials. They asked for some assistance from us in terms of some speedy dry, boom materials, just in case there's residual oil that would need to be accommodated for. All of this would be done under the building department. They will issue the appropriate permits for this, not charging them, because there is no cost to the town for them to remove these tanks. Ty and Bond, through the licensed environmental professional, had put out the word of, we called it a yard sale, and asked the many companies that do this sort of work if they had interest. Some of them responded and were not interested. Others had quoted her some prices to remove the tanks and the material associated with it. But this was the company that came forward with the best deal, the best approach, and that is, we don't have to pay for it. And it means more of the dollars will be put into cleaning up the property instead of spending and putting it into the bid for the cleanup. What Amy Valancourt, the LEP, had said is, if we didn't get someone to take the tank for no cost, then she would put it in the bid that goes out to the company for removal. And in 2016, she told me today, the approximate cost was $100,000 to remove and take those down and then remove them. So I'm sure there's a business reason. It's certainly something that is important for our business, as well as it's compatible with Connecticut Scrap. The gentlemen were very enthusiastic, and they want to complete this project very soon. Obviously, there is some cash residual for the metal, but it isn't very good right now. And that was the problem in finding any number of suitors for us. So I'm very grateful that we'll be able to do this for no cost. But because this is an action associated with the project, again, I bring it to your attention. I want to talk about it with you if you have questions. But for the record, I would like endorsement from this board to acknowledge that as we're doing this work, I'm bringing to you. I also shared with the task force that this is happening. I want to make sure we're as transparent and people are knowledgeable about what is happening. Because once those tanks start coming down, there's going to be a lot of questions. Make some noise, I presume. There's going to be some trucks that will have to take that away. The approximate amount of time once they get started, they told me today, is about 2 days, which to me sounded,
Quick.
That's fast.
what do you think? This
Seems real fast.
woods, isn't it? Hernandez, Michael Hernandez.
I couldn't hear you. What did you say?
I said, does that sound reasonable to you? That's sort of your business. I know that you work in environmental work.
Yeah, no, that's really fast, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it
Hey.
almost sounds too good to be true.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
They had enthusiasm today, and we certainly don't want to quell enthusiasm, get this project up and. Further discussion? Anyone interested in endorsing this?
Sure, I'll make a motion that we endorse the, we endorse the vendor coming in at no cost and taking the tanks, filling station and doing the proposed work at the Brownfield project.
Thank you, Jim. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Oh,
Seconded by Michael Pelton.
Sound like a little quicker than you.
Sorry?
Nothing.
Michael was a little quicker than me.
Just a little quicker.
Any further questions or discussion on this?
No, I think it's great. I think just having it moved out of the way and people seeing that happen is going to be exciting. So that's good.
Thank you, Michael. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstaining? Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. The next item, Tom talked a little bit about this in his budget report. It's the COVID-19 relief funds for state and FEMA. And we have a resolution for your consideration. Be it resolved that the Portland Board of Selectmen hereby authorizes the submission for the request for COVID-19 related expenditure reimbursement for fiscal year 2020 and fiscal year 2021 from the state of Connecticut and FEMA. This is a requirement in order to fulfill and accept any reimbursement that will be available to us. And I wanted to also bring this to your attention. Tom, do you want to expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, this seemed to be like for some of the Corona relief fund monies that we've applied for in the fiscal year 2020 that was just recently had to be submitted. It was one of the objectives that they had requested that, you know, the Board of Selectmen had acted on that. So that's why we want to come and get that information for the 2020, anticipating there'll be some expenditures for 2021 and or if FEMA approves our request for the 2020 monies, we might be able to go get the 25% that they don't pay reimbursed from the state if the state allows us to go back and do that. So it's more or less just any of the funds that are available, definitely from the state and then also from FEMA. We just wanted to have a resolution on file that, you know, gave us the blessing to go and get that money.
Outstanding.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I can turn that into a motion, just say, I make a motion that we approve the resolution titled COVID-19 Relief Funds, State and FEMA dated November 4, 2020.
I'll second that.
I'll say. Okay. Ralph, you beat me.
We're gonna have to get a buzzer for future meetings.
Yeah.
You have to buzz in.
I had to run with the joke.
Okay.
The COVID money is very important that we get this reimbursement. And I will tell you that Tom has spent a tremendous amount of time documenting all of the costs associated with expenditures as well as the labor costs. Helping him is Bob Shea, as well as other members of our team. And we don't get reimbursed for their work, but it is very important that we get reimbursement for these supplies. And as you might imagine, when you're working with federal and state governments, there's a lot of very detailed information that has to be presented. So I want to thank Tom for his leadership on this, He's doing a nice job in getting a lot of this COVID money that we are due. And it's very important for us and paying for everything. You'll remember the library got some dollars for COVID, expansion of services for library. I got word this week that the Emergency Management Performance Grant, there's a supplemental grant, small amount, but it's still a good amount for PPE in addition, as well as some other necessities like testing. Don Goen will be working with Region 3 on that, and I thank Don for his leadership in getting that money and making sure we fill all those requirements. And there are other pots as well that we will be trying to mine and get the amount that is due to the town. I'm still waiting on the COVID-19 relief monies from the small cities, which would be to improve the kitchen here at the senior center and a van to distribute meals. Mary mentioned that many of our senior centers are operating with providing meals to people, which is a nice social way to interact, as well as a high healthful way of making sure that our seniors are cared for during these days. I don't know that we'll be successful in all these attempts, but we are trying our best, and it's certainly not for want of effort for getting these dollars. So thank you to our staff and to our selectmen for guiding us through this. I'll call for the question. Is everyone in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. The next item is appointments to boards and commissions. I don't have any tonight. Do any of the selectmen?
I have one, Susan.
Okay.
I have one.
Yes, go ahead.
This was brought up at Monday night's Republican Town Committee meeting. They'd like to appoint Bob Casati to fill Rich Basso's vacancy on the Zoning Board of Appeals until, I guess, the next election,
Okay.
which probably be for 1 year,
I
basically.
think so, yeah. Is there a
Yeah.
second to the motion?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Jim. Thank you, Rick. I did know that Mr. Casati was willing to serve, and I appreciate that. All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carried. And it's nice to think of Rich Basso, who was a long-serving member of that commission, and the soul is not able to be with us, but he did a lot of work.
Yeah.
Refunds for excess payments. Jim?
All right. I'll make a motion that we refund the amount of $50.71 to Olivia Briggs.
Second it.
Seconded by Ralph. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
And make a motion that we refund the amount of $6.94 to Norman Rosignol.
Second it.
Seconded by Ralph. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
And make a motion that we refund the amounts of $54.36, $347.58, $238.94, $309.11, $118.86, and $24.69 to Toyota Lease Trust.
Second it.
Seconded by Ralph. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
And I make a motion that we refund the amount of $35.50 to Peter D'Amato.
Second it.
Seconded by Ralph. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Number 15, status reports. Do we have any status reports tonight?
I have a couple things. First, I would like to note a couple of events that we had this past weekend and went really well. We had the combined effort of the library and Park and Rec to do a drive-by trick-or-treat candy giveaway. So that went really well. I think from the library side, they talked about almost 150 coloring books they gave out. So we had a really successful event. And then on Saturday morning, we had our annual 5K down at the riverfront. And they had originally 186 runners signed up. And I would think that we were close in that ballpark to how many actually showed. It went very well. It was well done by the timer to make sure that people were staggered so they weren't near each other. They were set up based on their anticipated paces, and it went really well. It was a good event. We've got a lot of positive feedback. They were really happy because a lot of the races have been canceled this year. So they felt really good to be able to actually go out and run one with other individuals. So it was a good event. The only other thing I'd add is that I know that Nate Foley had sent out a picture. We talked about it, just want to send a picture out. So you're aware that there was a sign that we're looking at and putting at the park. It was passed by the Park and Rec Committee, and then the Park and Rec Commission approved the sign. And right now we're in the midst of getting that set up. We've had some discussions about, whether it's, it'll be able to withstand vandalism and stuff like that. But I think it's a great sign. So we'll be working on trying to get that finished up. And in the meantime, I think I mentioned at the last meeting, but the plan with the overall winterization of the park continues to be worked.
Hey, Ralph, I have a question on the sign. I printed it off just before the meeting tonight. Is that a big block of brownstone that the sign is attached to?
Yeah, so if you go by the park now, this was the challenge. So we really like that piece of brownstone. And so Dorita Construction put that brownstone in place because they originally had a smaller stone. We found a better stone that we had at the town salt shed area. They have a bunch of brownstone from other projects. And we found this piece that we really liked. Unfortunately, that became the challenge because the nature of how it was installed and where the seams are, I forgot what they're called. The
Grain.
Grain.
That's right. How it runs, there was a little bit of a risk in terms of how it'll weather. So the original plan in terms of we had talked about was looking at trying to engrave maybe letters into the stone. And we got pushback on trying to do that because of the nature of how it was standing up like that. So we talked about a number of solutions, came to this final solution, and so Nick Dorita came forward for the company and presented the new plan, which is what you see on there. So that stone sits there already. We just haven't put a name on it yet. So this would be the final piece of actually putting the name of the park on the stone. So finishing off.
I like it.
Looks nice.
I like it a lot. I think it'll be beautiful and very attractive. Thank you. Good job. Any other comments on the sign or?
I had a question. Well, actually, the sign is great. I think that the prototype looks great, and I'm sure it'll fit nicely on that piece of brownstone. But next to that sign, and I'm not sure if that was a sign that said drive slow on the other side or whatever, but there was a sign next to it that said parks closed, keep out. Now, is the park closed?
No, I don't know what, that's probably something that's
It looked like it was
I
printed.
think it was an old picture.
It's an old picture. Lou.
Oh,
I
you're
think.
looking,
When
from
the
the
park
picture. Yeah.
opened up.
That's right. When we took, that was, what happened is, that's a picture from before we opened it up. And all he did was superimpose that picture of the sign onto it.
No, that's not it. The sign itself and the prototype separate from the stone, and then it looks like it was already on the stone. That's fine. But next to it, there's like a, work sign, like people working on the road or drive slow sign. But on the back side of that sign facing the entrance to the park, it says park closed, keep out.
Yeah, again,
The question is the park closed?
no, that was months ago. That's a picture from months ago. When
That's
we
from
had-
like last winter, Lou, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
There
So,
was
no,
some trouble. There was some trouble with people in the park after sunset. And the police contacted me and I contacted Nate Foley. And Nate was going to put a sign, and it should be there only when the gate is closed, which would be after sunset and before sunrise, which is a long time right now because it's probably about 4:30 in the afternoon till 6:40 maybe in the morning, that you are not to be inside the park. The police had found people in the park. I think they were on the playground and they were doing things, nothing illegal, but they were just in the park. And all of our parks are closed from sunset to sunrise unless there's a special activity. So I don't know whether there's I was at the park this morning. I didn't see a sign there.
no, when we talked about it, I think yesterday, Nate said he was ordering it. So he knows he has to put it there. So he was working on getting it so he could put it.
So just a reminder, people. And the other reminder, because I don't know if I guess I'll say it. My walking partner, who happens to be my sister, stepped in something that you don't like stepping in. And we've talked about this in terms of probably dogs and their caregiver who isn't picking up after them. And it's infuriating. And people, please pick up after your dog. It's not the dog's fault. It's the owner that's responsible for picking up after the dog. I know the park and rec folks had talked about not allowing dogs because of this. And the location of this situation was in the adult fitness area. So people were coming off, this person was coming off the equipment after exercising. And unfortunately, prize. Another reminder. Minor in nature, but major when it I guess hits you.
Yeah.
Anything else for status reports, Chuck?
I mean, something we're all very familiar with from having been there, but for the record, the Board of Ed, it didn't meet obviously yesterday with the election. I believe that's going to be next week. But that we did have a joint BOS Board of Education meeting tonight at 6:30. And effectively, there was a presentation, a report that they had commissioned some months ago that took a look at our facilities, our school facilities, both the grounds and the buildings, took a look at needs, age, things of that nature. So providing a lot of data for us to take a look at in a joint fashion over the coming months. So it was good to get that process started and get that report, and we'll see how it all goes.
Thank you to the Board of Ed. It was a well-run meeting. I appreciate all the,
Yeah.
Yeah, very good.
lots more to come. Just a quick thank you. There was a lot of thank yous from our voters. The whole voting for
Yes.
the presidential election went extremely well, both the absentee ballot process as well as the in-person balloting. And I want to thank our registrars of voters, our town clerk, all the staff, and the many, many people, including PHS student volunteers that were a great help to us at the facility. I also want to thank Charles Britton. The school is just marvelous, and the layout was wonderful. I mean, we have a wonderful resource in that middle school. Cafeteria, and the traffic flow for people was really well appreciated. So thank you, everybody.
Yeah, Susan, if I could also say as well, I mean, I was following the election yesterday all day, didn't sleep last night, may get some sleep tonight. But I was looking at how other towns were handling, how long it was taking, and Portland, I think by far seemed to have the smoothest election time. People were in and out. It was easy. It was simple. It was well run. There were compliments about it. I think Ryan and the team did a fantastic job. I got a chance to chat with them yesterday when I was voting, but I think it made our town look really good and well run, and couldn't be prouder of those guys.
Thanks, Mike. I agree. 1000%. Rick, did you have something you wanted to mention tonight?
Well, it was more of a question. and I guess it could come under this informal discussion. I was just wondering what, where we're at with the land swap. I know I delivered maps to the Exchange Club, and are we waiting to hear from them now?
What I need to do is put together the quitclaim deed. I was waiting to make sure the minutes were approved, which I believe they were tonight, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure if it was that meeting or the meeting before, maybe. But I did need to make sure those minutes were approved, which they have been. So I will be working on that with our attorney. And I think the Exchange Club may also need to sign because it's a quitclaim to both sides.
Yeah, okay.
Recorded, then it will be
Yeah.
recorded at the town clerk's office.
And I'll just second what Mike Pelton was saying. I found voting, and I did the absentee and dropped it off at the town hall, but it was really an easy process. And I think the people in the town clerk's office and the people that worked at the polls and were with the whole election process did a really good job.
Thank
Yeah, it was seamless.
Public.
Okay.
There is no public comment tonight. Informal discussion?
Oh, just one thing, Susan, it's Mike. Any update at all from Dan with regards to the Elmcrest project? Weren't they talking about breaking ground on something in the next month or so? I just didn't know what the latest was.
I had word from Mary Dickerson today that she does have a meeting scheduled with Dan Bertram. And
Okay.
hopefully we'll get some specifics and I will share that with you or have Mary share it with you, Mike. Good question.
That would be great. Thank you, Susan.
Welcome. I don't have tonight unless there's another.
I have another question.
Yes, Rick.
By the way, for Mike Pelton, I have the agenda for next week's EDC meeting, and
Right.
there is a update on Brainerd Places on their agenda. So
Oh,
I think
great.
Mary has something to report.
Yeah, what happened was
Thanks,
the
Rick.
actually EDC put together a set of questions and they fed them back to Dan, and I think they were looking for responses on their questions.
The other topic I wanted to just keep on the front burner was, and we talked about it a couple of weeks ago, was the sale of I think it was the old police station up in Gildersleeve. I don't know, is there anything moving with that, or do we have any people like even looking at it or giving it consideration?
With town-owned properties, we work with our attorney. So I have sent a message. I have a phone appointment with Carrie Olson on Monday to talk about perhaps utilizing their appraisal service. They have an appraiser that we often use, and have them take a look at the building, and give us an idea of the value so that we can proceed.
Okay. Yeah, I know, I feel a little bit involved there because I know Jim and I, when we were doing the budget negotiations or talks, we kind of came up with, well, hey, let's try to sell this building and, bring in X number of dollars. So before we know it, we'll be talking budget again. And I figure I didn't want to have egg on my face that we didn't do anything about this. Anyway.
Susan, I had just one question, and maybe it's not really a question, it's a concern that I received from a resident, and maybe I can just share this with Ralph and he can forward it to either Jake or the commission. Carolyn DeBerry, who's a resident in town, has asked me twice now, once last year and then again this year, about ice skating as a park and rec activity. And so at first she had mentioned that in Middletown, they have an artificial ice skating rink that they put together she didn't know how much it cost and how successful it was. I had gone by a few times there in Middletown, and I didn't see it operating. Maybe it was not a week. I was a weekday. Maybe they only open on weekends. I'm not sure. But if anybody wants to take a look at it, it's an artificial skating rink that can be used all the time because you don't need cold weather. And it's put at the Veterans Park in Middletown, if you're familiar with that area. So there's one thing. And then, of course, she called again today and she asked me if, in fact, the Park and Rec could use part of the new park for an ice skating area, either for an artificial skating rink installed or an area that could be flooded. So those are just a couple of things I'm just sharing with you that I received from a phone call. It wasn't today, it was 2 days ago and last year.
So I will tell you, the discussion of ice skating has been an annual discussion for many, many years at Park and Rec. Certainly, we've talked about the area that we have down towards the fairgrounds and in that area where people skate, and that's been the place that people have skated for many years. When we were looking at other options, we did actually have a conversation with Carl Johnson and talked about these type of structure, temporary structures that you could install and flood with water to try to create a nice skating surface. But we did talk about obviously the cost that goes with that. When we were building the brand new park, we actually thought that the area in the front for retention of water, I think we kind of thought it was going to be a larger area than it really is. So we thought maybe there's going to be an area where there might be able to do some ice skating there. It's not necessary. It's not really as big as we would have thought it, when we were talking about it. So it doesn't offer that. We did talk about when they installed that new facility, that new structure in Middletown about doing that. And I can't remember if we actually bounced around the true cost of that type of surface. I think we did talk about it. I certainly will pass it on again to Nate, but it does seem to be like an annual discussion that we have about ice skating. And at this point, all we have is that area down by the fairgrounds that people use for that. I know sometimes you go by there, depending on it, you can see kids out there having a little hockey game and stuff like that. Unfortunately, it's a little rough surface, but there's stretches there when it's a good skating surface, just stretches. So, but yeah, I will certainly pass it on to Nate.
Right. Well, thank you. Thank you for doing that. And I will tell Carolyn that it's being addressed. But you're right. The Wongok Meadow is really an outstanding place to go ice skating. Maybe down the road, we have to think ahead and maybe say, if we mowed that grass in that area where it freezes, maybe that would take away the grass that would be coming through the ice that would cause people not to be able to go straight and skate. But yeah, that's the best spot. It's safe, it's nice. And now we even soon will own the entranceway, so everything will be fine. People can pull their car in, kids can go skating, they can have a fire. It's just an outstanding outdoor skating area that we have that's man-made, or not man-made, it's natural. Thank you, though.
And I do recall a couple of years ago, when we had one of those major ice storms, that entire area was full-blown ice, and there was someone that was doing major skating down a stretch all the way through that area. So
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Yep.
If there's nothing else, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second. Teacher Ralph.
The motion was made by Lou and seconded by Rick. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Good evening.